Hello, everybody. I'm Sharon Lee Williams, and this is OutRaised Voices, a show that supports people who've been raised outside their family of origin, culture of origin, or even if you just feel that you've been outraised in some way. We are here to support you. We are creating this community. And as always, I want to thank you for joining us. If you've been here before, thank you for showing up again. If you're new here, welcome. I appreciate you. And today we are celebrating. I want to celebrate all the caregivers, the foster caregivers, the adoptive parents, the adults who, like myself, who have grown up in the system and have come out the other side. We may still be working on some issues, but we've come out the other side. And we are here to support especially the youth who are stepping out into the world. And we're here to support the youth. We're here to support the adults. We're here to support the adoptive parents. We are here in support. And as I say, I am celebrating all of you today. All right. So today, our CEO, now for those of you who don't know what I mean by CEO, every guest that comes on the show brings us conversation, education, and outreach. So I call them my CEOs. Yes. And today my CEO is Chenita Tayborn. Now I'm going to read you a little bit about Chenita because she's been through all facets. She was a youth in care. She's an adult who's a caregiver and who has gone on to create this wonderful, is the founder of Youth Be Known, a nonprofit organization that provides services to families adopting and fostering children from the public foster care system. Youth Be Known is inspired by the neglect and trauma of her childhood, the pain of her mother, and the love of grandparents, God's grace and mercy, and the ability to forgive. So today's CEO is Chenita. All right, Chenita. Where does it begin? What's the seed that gets planted? Where does the seed get planted? And what is your why? Let's start from the beginning. Mm-hmm. Let's set you up there. What's the story?
My mom struggled with addiction. She struggled with mental illness. And she just struggled with, accepting some of the things that she's done. And I think that a lot of her decisions just kind of ate at her. And she just really didn't have the support to overcome those things. Mm-hmm. And so the darkness of addiction just took over. Mm-hmm. And so it eventually led to just destruction. It led to the abandonment of her children, the abandonment of herself, Yeah. She went through a lot. She went through a lot. And I always tell people that anybody that lives in the streets have 1,000 untold stories.
Mm-hmm. And your mom lived in the streets, you're saying?
Yeah. She dealt with homelessness and, just that whole lifestyle of, just what happens when people live in the streets. Mm-hmm. But, when people live in the streets, they have 1,000 untold stories. And so I just feel like that her story was just one that just never, just spoke to the right people until it was too late, But she has 13 children, 7 girls and 6 boys.
Wow.
Yeah.
And where do you fit in? Where do you fit in?
I'm number 8 of 13. I'm number 8 of
13.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have 4 older brothers, 3 older sisters, 2 younger brothers, and 3 younger sisters.
Yes. So you're not exactly the middle child because there is really no middle child here. But
there's really no middle child, but we've never all been together. You know, and so, which is really a dream and a prayer of mine that it will one day happen, where everybody's still alive, where everybody's still, okay, that it will happen.
So do you know where everybody is?
Yes, we now know. When my younger sisters were like a little bit younger, we didn't really know like where they were and what was happening with them. We didn't really have contact with them.
Mm,
But since COVID, we've all kind of just got in contact with each other through Facebook.
mhm,
Nonetheless, we've all just kind of reconnected through Facebook, and so we've been building from there as
mhm.
best we can.
Well, I want to tap into the part that says as best we can, because
Mhm.
everybody's coming with their own traumas and their own sense of
Mhm.
abandonment and their own even anger, all of these things that come with feeling abandoned and traumatized, or
Mhm.
all these things that come with you. So how do you support them? Or, I mean, you can't be the mother to everybody, but how do you
Mhm.
support yourself and support your siblings when going through this?
I think that boundaries play a very important part in, getting to know them because at the end of the day, like we're still just the siblings, like we aren't the parents. And so,
Hmm.
for me, when they have their questions about my mom and just different things, and maybe because I'm so protective of my mom also, but I feel like my mom is not here to tell her story. And so a lot of their questions, like I'm not able to answer because like I'm not my mom. And so I just don't feel it's right for me just to, because nobody wakes up and say, I don't want to take care of my kids. Like, or I
Yes,
want to
yes.
abandon my kids. I want to neglect my
Hmm.
kids. Like, nobody
Hmm.
wakes up like that. Something
Hmm.
happened. And so I
Yeah.
never want them to feel like that she just woke up and was like, I don't want y'all. Something happened.
Hmm.
And I just try to give them just as much as I can give them without, hurting them or, adding on to what they've already been through. We've all
Hmm.
been through something. And I just try to just keep it very like, surface because they have their own, things that they've had to deal with over the years, and we've had our own things that we've had to deal with, although not the same, very similar. I think at one point they kind of felt like we had the better end of the stick because we were with like my grandparents at one point. But we had to watch my mom struggle. We had to watch her, in her addiction. We had to deal with her like stealing from us and, doing hurtful things to my grandparents. And, I mean, like we had to watch her just self destruct.
So as you're doing that, and how old are you? Like, how many years were you with your grandparents? Because as you mature, you're seeing this, and I imagine it takes on a different level of emotion as the longer it goes on.
Yeah. Well, when I started to realize like her addiction was maybe around like 13, 14, and she was just
Mm,
so thin, like you could see like the bone structure like in her neck,
wow.
and then she could barely like hold her head up. She was always like nodding, and
Hmm.
I mean, just you can tell something was definitely like different.
Hmm.
And from the time I can remember, like we've always had, like my siblings and I have always just been even just more so like protective of her because of her addiction. Because knowing that somebody can hurt her, or, anything can happen.
Right.
But my grandparents were like really good because they never allowed us to like disrespect her. They never allowed us to just mistreat her because of her situation, or like we still had to respect her as mom.
Wow.
We
That's
still had
that's
to respect her
wonderful.
as mom.
Yeah, you
Like
got to
although she,
respect your grandparents for that, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah,
Because that's not an easy thing. That's their child.
yeah. One of the
Or.
things that stood out for me with my grandparents was it was this one time my mom was like really really sick. She was really sick, and CPS came, and they were telling my grandparents like that they were going to remove us from the home if they didn't make my mom leave because she had no rights to us. She wasn't supposed to be around us or anything. My grandparents told CPS take them, this is my daughter, and I think that that level of respect, just kind of like grew even more fonder of them because they made such a sacrifice. They have 10 children. They had already raised their children, and then here come my mom with all these kids, my older siblings had already been with my mom, and so I came to my grandparents when I was 3 days old. And so they had me for like very small, like very young. And so they made a great sacrifice for their marriage, for our family. They sacrificed
Absolutely.
a lot. They sacrificed a
Absolutely.
lot, but it was even more of like a disheartening situation because like there was their daughter, like we were the
Yeah.
children, but this was their daughter, and we
Daughter.
still had to protect their daughter. And no matter what
Exactly.
she did, no matter how she did it, how wrong she was, like my grandparents never turned their back on her, never turned their back. And
Oh my.
she struggled with addiction. She struggled with sobriety. She struggled just in every area. But my grandparents never like gave up on her. They never made us feel like we had to choose between them or her, or like it was just a very balanced situation. They set us down, told us what her condition was, told us what her health status was, and very very gentle, very it wasn't traumatizing in that like in a way that it could have been, but yeah, but
So when CPS came and said to gave your grandmother these sort of or grandparents these orders, what happened?
they ended up just leaving us there because my grandparents were very firm, like we're not going to allow her to come in and hurt these children, but we are going to take care of our daughter. you know and so they had to respect that, because where they going to put all these kids at, like where were they going to put these kids at? And so yeah, like they ended up leaving, and of course they could come back to make sure that she was gone, but they didn't take us in that moment. And I thought it was very like, I thought it was a very significant thing that my grandfather said to them, which was take them, like this is my daughter. And no matter what our situation is, the courts have already determined that she can't have them. We're not going to let her have them, but this is still our child, and she needs us right now, and we're going to meet her where she's at. She's not hurting them, she's not harming them. We got them. And so it was just that boundary between, them parenting their children and them parenting their grandchildren, and still, like meeting our needs of protection and meeting her needs of needing her parents to protect her in that moment.
So how many of the grandchildren are with the grandparents at this time?
At the time, it was eight of us. It was four girls, four boys. But my older siblings, they had been through so much with my mom that they had like started running away from like my grandparents' home because of the rules and structure and those kind of things. So it was kind of like in and out. I had an older brother that stayed back and forth with his father. I had another sister and brother that just back and forth like in the streets. That's what they had been introduced to. So that's what they knew. So that's kind of like what they knew. So it was like back and forth. And then my grandmother at one point just got frustrated and sent my older brother and older sister of mine to live with their father for a little bit, just because it was just a lot, just running away, the police coming to the home, and it's just a lot of different things or whatever. So,
Well, I
yeah.
celebrate your grandparents for sure, for
hmm
sure, because that
Yeah.
is not easy. How old are your grandparents at this time that
They're in their
they
like
did?
late 60s at that time. They're like in their late 60s. My grandfather had just retired when I was born in 1988. Yeah, so like they had just retired, and
Wow, and their kids are all grown and out of the
hmm
house, and that's love. That's love, that's dedication, that's
hmm
a lot of things
hmm
that I hadn't heard of before because there's so many children. It's
hmm
one thing for grandparents to take one or two,
hmm
but to take eight and deal, especially you're all ranging in different ages, I
hmm
suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, I have like way older sisters and brothers, but like big age difference between most of us. But yeah, it was a lot for them, for sure.
Yeah. And your mom comes from a large family. Your mom came
hmm
from a large family, right?
Yeah,
So,
she has nine siblings.
yeah, yeah. So I understand. It just makes the understanding of your mother where she went with that. That was
Yeah.
what she grew up with. So it's
hmm
again on whose shoulders we
Yeah.
stand. What
hmm
do we stand? And how do you feel? I know you've forgiven your mother if there was something to forgive, or you understand being a woman yourself. And where do you feel you're at with that? All of that
I feel like
understanding.
it took me a while to get to the point of forgiveness, because as a kid, like I could never understand, like, because she would
Right.
always say, like, I'm gonna come back for you, I'm gonna come and get you, or I'm gonna get myself together, and like she never came, or when she
Yeah.
would come, it was like quick, she was in and out, because she was either
Yeah.
stealing something, doing something she wasn't supposed to be doing, or just it was just something else happening. And I think that the forgiveness comes from just getting a deeper relationship with God and knowing like what forgiveness means and how to truly forgive, because you can easily say out of your mouth you forgive someone, but like internally, like, have you forgiven them, like. And so it took me a while, and it wasn't until she was on her deathbed that I was able to tell her, like, I forgive her, like I was able to tell her, like, I forgive you, because I think I needed that moment, and I think that in that moment she needed that also. And so
Oh, yeah.
the forgiveness comes from my grandparents, like, not allowing us to judge her, not allowing us to, like, when she did something wrong, we were not allowed to hold it over her head. We still had to get her Mother's Day gifts, whether she sold what we gave her or
Wow.
didn't pick it up or didn't value it. We still had to do it. Mother's
Yes.
Day, birthdays, whatever it was, we still had to celebrate her. And so, and I think that's one of those things where it just shows me, like, who God truly is, because
Yes.
like my grandparents, like the stuff that my mom did to them, like, they really had to have the heart of Christ. They really had
Yes.
to have the heart of
The
Christ, and they had to
heart of
really
Christ.
the heart of Christ, because that was a lot, like, to take care of somebody's children, to have someone doing, such harsh things to you, to parent her, knowing that she comes from a two-parent background. She comes from a loving home. My grandmother never worked a day in her life because my grandfather was the provider. She had a beautiful life. She's able to stay home, raise their children. They never needed or wanted for nothing. Come from a good, community of people and, a family. And yeah, so my
And there's the
grandparents.
question. There's the question, because as as your grandparents go, they say, we're, I'm assuming some part of them goes, what did we do wrong?
Yeah.
And it isn't them. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't do
It's
anything
choices.
wrong. It's their, choices we make as
Mm-hmm.
adults. But as a mom, you take on everything your child does.
Yeah.
It's hard to let go of that. And
Yeah.
when you talk about forgiveness, I know somebody said to me, you can forgive, but that doesn't mean you forget. It
Mm-hmm.
just
I'll never
means,
forget.
yeah, you forgive, because you have to let that baggage go, or
Mhm.
it'll just consume you. And does it pop up every now and then when you get a little bit angry? I ask you that because I know it pops up with
Mhm.
me every now and then. And as I told you, I'm like a 75-year-old woman, and that still
Mhm.
rears its little ugly head
Yes.
every now and then, where I'm
Yeah.
angry. Yeah.
Yeah. I think sometimes it comes up, but I always say, like, I feel like the better part of my mother is like in me,
Yes.
because she was just so gifted in so many areas. Like,
Like what?
she could sing, she can like write really well. She loves to do
Oh.
poetry. And those, I can't sing, but I do like to, like, do like calligraphy, like, cursive writing. And she
Mm.
loves to, like, write her beautiful penmanship.
Oh, wow.
She loved to clean. She just had like many great things about her. And I think one of the most disheartening things for me that still, like, plays in my head at times was at her funeral. And I think I got like physically sick at her funeral, honestly, because so many people were just saying, like, so many people got up to speak and say, well, Maxine was, because her name was Constance Maxine. So they would say, like, oh, Maxine did this, or she was this, or she did this. And it's like, had she felt this outpour of love, had she known that, that this love was
That people
available to her,
felt that, yeah, that people
yeah,
felt that
that
way
this
about
love
her.
was available to her, I'm not gonna say we wouldn't be sitting at her funeral, but a lot of things could have been avoided. A lot of decisions, and yeah, and so that kind of stuff plays in my head sometimes. But I don't think that, like, her absence, because it was never like familiar for me. Like I've always had my grandparents,
Mm-hmm.
and so when I look, it's like when I think about mom, I don't think about her as mom. Think about my grandma as mom, and so like the forgiveness and letting go, I feel like I've done that well, but yeah, I'm okay. Like with just where I am with it. When I have thoughts, I am in therapy. I've been in therapy for so long, just because like if whatever comes up, I'm always able to address it.
Mm-hmm.
Something that, something comes up like, like Mother's Day comes up.
Mm-hmm.
I think about what could have been, you know, what
Mm-hmm.
has never been, like
Mm-hmm.
what would have been like to have a relationship with her, and I see like different videos on like TikTok and stuff where people, like they have their cameras out where they're like walking up to people that live in the streets or walking up and recording people that are addicts. Like I would lose my mind if I got on a social media website and saw someone recording my mom in one of her most vulnerable moments,
That's
And
so
so I always
sad.
like, I'm like, I'm thankful that she's not
Yeah.
here to have to, even be a part of that. Because
Mm-hmm.
when she passed away, like that wasn't a thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always thankful just for like the little things, and I always have like sweet reminders, that she accepted Christ on her deathbed, and that comforts me. I think
So
about the life.
was she clean by the time she passed, or?
I think that she had gotten herself clean at one point
Mm-hmm.
because she had gained so much weight, like she had
Mm-hmm.
gained so much weight.
Really?
And I think she had got herself like somewhat clean. And of course, like when you have access to stuff, like if
Mm-hmm.
you want to do it, you'll do it. If you don't, you won't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but I just, yeah, I think that at one point she had got herself like together.
And I love that you say you're the best part of your mom. You're the best part of, and if she's
Mhm.
looking at you now, wherever she is, and wow, this, you're the best part of your mom. All the stuff, probably all the kids are the best
Mhm.
part of her, the best that she could do. So now you became a caregiver.
Mhm.
And I'm
Awesome.
always curious how, because I say this, as a foster child, I have not been able to make that transition for various reasons. But one of the things, I never felt that I would be a good foster parent for some reason, because I always thought that would be a challenge for me to see
Mhm.
myself in others. Maybe I don't know. I'm giving myself therapy here, but so how do you decide to do that? When did you decide that that would be a step you want to take? And it's a big step.
It was a grand step for sure. But I feel like that in the moment that I decided to become a foster parent, I feel like I was like on a very like destructive path at one point, just trying to find my own way, just trying to, figure out what it is that I'm supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I was hurting from not having like my mom and my dad, and having watched like my mom go through what she went through, and it started to like affect me at one point, maybe like 1920 is when
Mm-hmm.
it really just like hit me that like dad, like she really just said like, like she got all these kids and she just, it don't even matter, and it just like it
Mm-hmm.
just started to eat up at me. And I just started
Yeah.
to make like very like careless decisions that like could have really like put me in like really bad situations, And I just think that just praying about what it is that I'm supposed to be doing, and then one day just the thought of fostering just came to me, but it didn't just, like it never left, like it never like left. And I'm like, okay, like I know that you got so, and I just did it and started and haven't stopped. And that's when I was like 21. I'm 36 now.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So you just,
I feel like it was like a calling. I feel like I
yeah.
was put in a position to have to make a decision. Either I
Mm-hmm.
was gonna do X, Y, and Z, and it kind of like saved me from me. It made
Yes.
me have to
Yeah.
settle down. It
Yeah.
made me have to like make better decisions, and like make myself like stable. It made
Yeah.
me have to like, like recognize like that I have to do something greater than myself. Like I
Yeah.
have to like do something to give back to people, that were once me, and so that
Yes.
I once
Yes.
was, I mean.
Because
But
but
yes.
you're so young at the time. Because
Hmm.
you said you started that at 21.
Hmm. Yeah.
At 21, we're all reaching like what's going on,
Hmm.
womanhood. So to make that decision to say I'm going to help these
Hmm.
other young people.
Yeah.
That's a that's kind of big. That's all I
Yeah.
can say. That's kind of big. I
But
wasn't that
but
big.
but it also saved me because like,
Yeah,
I thought I
of
wanted to
course.
be like in the streets and like in the club and like dating several people.
Yeah,
Like it's just like I wanted to be doing what I wanted to do. And it's
of
like God was like,
course.
nope, like that's not what I got for you. But it made me have to
Yes.
like really like center myself and what I will tell people that before you get into like fostering and taking care of children that are like, that suffer with like trauma, that you really have to like address your own triggers, address your own traumas. So I did therapy, like during the process of becoming a foster parent, like I was already in therapy, because I'm just like, no, like this ain't the path I want to go down because, it was just a very lonely path. You're surrounded by people, but very lonely. And I'm just like, I don't ever want to be in a position where, like I'm gonna end up like my mom. I don't ever want to like put myself around people that would lead me down that path. So even being like like I was born drug addicted. Like I'm very cautious of like medications that I take, and just being like my environments matter. Like I have a very addictive personality. Like if I like something, I overindulge in it. So I'm very like particular about like the company I keep, the environments I'm in, like what I'm taking, what I'm putting in my body, because I never want to, you know, even get to that point of being an addict, or both my parents are addicts. So I never want to like even chance, like even
Yeah.
going down that path. And so when I realized that that was becoming an issue, then I was like, nope, started fostering, and it made me have to get myself together.
So at that time, are you connected now? Are you connected to God? Are you really to spirit into or at 21? You're there. You're holding hands with God, or
Mhm.
that comes later.
No, I grew up in church, and I feel like church was always like a safe space for me. Have very great people, like that I was connected to like in church. And I knew that no matter what happened, no matter what I did, that my faith and what it is that I believed in was something I can always fall back on. No
Yes.
matter, how far I got away from it, it's something I could always like come back to. And so I think like when you're grounded in that and when you're rooted in that and when things happen, you know exactly what to turn, you know exactly like where your
Yes.
help comes from. And so for
Yes.
me, it was just one of those things where you're trying to run away from something and it's like, okay, like you're not gonna get far. You're
So
not gonna get far.
was there pushback in church, or, in your community when you decided to foster? Was there pushback?
I don't think it was any pushback. I think that it was just more so, me accepting, like me accepting the calling of doing,
No, I meant
foster.
pushback from the community more so.
Oh
From
no, no. I
no,
think
no.
everybody was like really encouraging. I think everybody was like really encouraging. I think
Wow.
that because I've always like naturally like been like, I tell people this all the time, like, but make sure you've lived your life before you get into caregiver mode. Because once you get into caregiver mode, it's hard to step away from. And having had, help my grandmother like with my grandfather, looking after my nieces and nephews, and just doing so much, it just only made sense, just to foster, because I'm like, I'm naturally like this person. That's who my grandmother has always been. My grandmother didn't have
Yes.
any friends. She had a church community, but she didn't have friends. She didn't go out. She took care of kids, her sister kids, her grandkids, and she got 10 children, and
Wow.
64, 70, grandkids, not even including her great grand, so this is who she is and this is what she knows. And so I just feel like it just trickled down to us,
Yeah.
like me and my siblings, and just always in that caregiver role, always in the like a serving role. And when you grow up like in church the way that we did, like serving is a big thing. My grandmother made sure we served. And so that's one thing I always like, like teach my girls even now about serving other people. Like when you go somewhere, you don't just sit down. Like if somebody need help, you make sure you make yourself available if you need to, like serving matters. And, like taking care of these foster kids, like I'm serving them because, like it's just something that I just naturally like love to do.
And you have, when you talk about your girls, these are your biological children as
I
well,
don't
or
have any biological
no children?
children.
Okay,
No
so
children.
all, because I like the way you say your girls. So how many foster children? How many foster children have you had, or do you have at the moment? And male to female? Do you mainly take? I want all those questions. I have all those questions. Teenagers, babies.
So I'll start with my first initial placement was the biological mom of my two adopted daughters. When she was a teen mom, I had her and her son, and my case manager at the time now has him as her son. And so we were always friends anyway until we just became, even closer. So the
Yeah, yeah.
kids, still see each other. I've taken in emergency placements for the most part, like the kids that get removed like overnight. Those were like my typical placements back when I lived in San Antonio. And then I got a little older, like older kids, like elementary school kids, and then but they were like short term, like 3 months, 6 months, those kind of placements. And then my two came at 2 weeks and a month old. And after that, I had stopped fostering for a little bit after I adopted them. They are biological sisters. They're 11 months apart. And
Oh,
they're 11 months apart. And they're just everything. Like they're everything.
wow.
When I say that God has a funny sense of humor, God has a funny sense of humor. I did not birth them, but I don't feel like I missed out on anything at all. I was there for the baby girl's birth, and then I was in Chicago. I was visiting my grandmother in Chicago when they called about the oldest. They had taken her to like a emergency shelter in San Antonio, so she just had to wait for me to come home, and I got home and I just knew like that when she was placed with me that she was like mine. I don't know how I knew in that moment, but I knew. But I've had them since they were like newborns, and we've been rocking since. I
Are they in
adopted them.
contact with their mom or dad or
No, no,
family members? No.
no. We haven't had the conversation of adoption yet. I've been trying to navigate that just to see like the best way to like tell them, because how my sisters found out was a little traumatizing for them, and I never want them to question like their mom's love for them because she truly loved her children. Like I would never take that away from her. Now I have a relationship with the mom. I talk to the mom. I send her pictures, keep her updated with how they're doing. Actually just spoke to her yesterday. I have a good relationship with her. But she doesn't like engage like with the children.
But
But no,
don't you feel that someday that will happen?
yeah, someday it will happen. And I want to introduce them to the whole adoption topic because I want her, because my mom never got to tell her story. And I want her to be able to be a part of that conversation of adoption with them, because I don't ever want them to feel like that she gave them up or what she did, but like that they weren't in love because she loved her children. Like she was just young, very young.
Right. The question of when to tell them, because I've had a couple of people on, some said they waited until later to tell their children
Hmm.
and it was still a shock. And some said, I wish I told them earlier, but I don't know. Like you say, you have to feel that time when
Hmm.
that time is right. I don't think there's a set time
Yeah.
to say to children, hey, in essence, however you're going to say that, I didn't bear you, but I bore you. you are God's gift to me. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's never a right time to do that. But I'm glad that you are in contact with the mother. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's very, honestly, you're such a courageous and resilient young lady.
Thank
You
you.
know, you're really, so and now we're going to get to the part we haven't talked about we've gone through your youth and the caregiver, and now we get to your nonprofit, your
Mhm.
foundation, what you are the founder of. Again, let me just say this again. Um,
Youth be known.
Youth Be Known, sorry.
Mhm.
You are the founder of Youth Be Known. Let's talk about that. How do you get to that? Because you've gone through all the stages now. Youth Be Known
Mhm.
and what that's about.
So, so when I lived in San Antonio, I worked in residential. I worked with foster children then also. And I remember being on campus and, the children lived there. And I remember calling my grandmother just in shambles because I was just like, it was children gathered in the cafeteria. And, it was all the children were coming from like their different cottages and everybody was gathering in. And I was just in shambles because I was just like, I just can't believe that this many people cannot take care of their children or refuse to take care of their children or put their children in harm's way that the state would have to come in and take custody of them. And that didn't even include the kids that were there already, that had already been, discharged. It didn't include the kids that had even made it over to, the cafeteria yet. And I was just like, I was just heartbroken. I was just, just taken back because it was just a lot of kids there. And when you work in residential services, like in emergency shelters, and being one of the supervisors there, um, those stories got worse and worse, and those babies got younger and younger, and I just couldn't do it. Like I just didn't understand it. I mean, I understood it, but I just couldn't cope with it. And so I just decided that I want to play my part, but not in this environment. Like not in the environment where I'm constantly triggered.
Yes.
And yeah, I wanted to still be a part of, like the care of the children, the nurturing part of it, the support part of it, but I just couldn't do it in that environment. And so I started Youth Be Known because I just feel like that people just need support. Like my mom needed support, you know. My mom needed somebody to hear her story, to advocate for her, to, give her resources, to give her, like I think that if my mom would have known that her children was more than enough and that all of this was just like all this instant gratification was just temporary, but the children are forever. Most of these kids' story is that the parents don't have the support. Like that the parents don't know that they need their children, and if they're not, and if the children are taken away, it's out of sight, out of mind. They just go on and keep living their life without their kids and never, do what they have to do to regain custody of their children. And then we flood the foster care system because we have so many kids in care, but not enough people or homes open to care for them. And so one of the things that I do is do foster parent recruitment, get people, I mean, try to encourage people to become foster parents, but give them the realistic side of it also,
Yes.
and give them the realistic side of it also, because it's not all, I mean, you're doing a job of the caseworker, the mom, the doctors, you're doing so many people's job in one, but then also like you have to still like take care of yourself also, as a foster parent. But with Youth Be Known, we just provide services and support to families that are fostering or adopting children. I do a lot of mentoring for pregnant and parenting teen moms. We host community baby showers every year, twice a year if we're able to. For because these girls, like, this is what they know is repeated cycles, and just try to give them support. do a bunch of advocacy work. I've done like a bunch of workshops. I've now gotten into like the conferences. I was able to do this most recent conference, the TTCA conference, where everyone like in the foster care, like child placement agencies, like gather every year for different trainings and different things like that. And I'll do another one in June. One of the things that I started with you, is the Perfectly Imperfect campaign, which is to change the public's like perception of what the foster care system looks like and change it from negative into positive and so into a positive. And so one of the things that I've been doing is getting into these churches and just kind of introducing, like what foster care is, how to, be the bridge between the foster care system and the church. Because if people have a safe place to come and say, "Hey, I need a break," without being judged, then we have less breakdown in placement. Like we have like less breakdown in placement. And so for me, it's like people just got to be honest with themselves. Like people just got to be honest and say, "Hey, I need help," but like you want to get help without being judged. And so if the church has it where they have licensed respite providers, they have licensed, foster parents that can step in, babysitters, people will feel safe to come worship here, but then also they feel safe to say, "Hey, do y'all have somebody that can help do X, Y, and Z because like I need a break." And then we have less breakdown in placement, and the kids
Yes.
are not being bounced around from place to place.
Oh,
Because some foster parents don't want to say, "I need a break," because
yeah.
then it looks like I can't do it, or I'm not built for this, or they're going to judge me. But if you have a safe place to do that, then you keep the kids in a home, the parents get a break, you come back, you regroup, and you try it again. But we have to be honest about it.
Yeah, I think it's difficult as adults to ask for help. That
Hmm.
is a big thing. How do I ask for help? How do I say I really need help? I need
Hmm.
time
Without
for
being judged.
myself. I mean, so it's almost you're educating adults
On how to ask for help.
how to ask for
On how
help.
to ask for help. Yeah. Hmm.
Which
Yeah, but just having just that support, just having just some. I mean, even me, like I'm gonna ask for help because I've been doing this long enough to know that it's okay. Like it's okay. Like I'm human. Like I need a break. Even if I have my own children, I would need a break. Like it's okay.
yes.
So like ask for help. Like it's okay. It doesn't mean I don't want to do it. It doesn't make me less of a parent. Doesn't make me less of, like my dedication doesn't change for them. It just means that in this moment I need to take care of me. And it's okay.
So what does me time look like for you?
I'm a girly girl. I'm a girly girl. So I love to shop. I love to do my hair, my nails. I love to craft. I love to I like being alone, honestly. Like I think that is very therapeutic. People judge people that like to be alone. Oh, you're an introvert. That's not, but for me, it gives me time to hear my thoughts. It gives me time to reflect. It gives me time to just like breathe. Cause you're taking care of people, like you're taking care of kids. I'm married, like it, you just need time for you. And so when I did
Yes.
the conference back in October, I did my topic was the mental wellness of foster and adoptive parents, building community, because that matters. Taking care of you matters, because if you don't take care of you, you cannot take care of these kids. Like, and it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to have those moments where you just need to digress. Like you just need to be alone, like so that you can think. Kids are a lot. I understand at this age why people say wait till you're ready. I understand. I understand better.
Yeah. Yeah.
When people say wait till you're ready, because it's a lot taking care of kids. And when you're taking care of kids that have been through, these stories, I just gotta leave them at the feet of Jesus, because like it's a lot. Like
It
it's just a
is. Even
lot.
as a biological parent, you should you
Mm-hmm.
hope you're ready, but there's
Mm-hmm.
stuff that comes up. Just
You're
you
doing
have to have.
appointments every day. You're doing therapy. You're doing this and that. And I prioritize my therapy. I prioritize. I do therapy twice a week, and I encourage
Wow.
everybody that's able to do therapy. Nothing has to even be wrong. Nothing has to, and that's the thing. Like people think that something got to be wrong in order for you to do therapy. Nothing has to be wrong. Therapy is very healthy. It's healthy.
I think so. I believe you 100%. I wish
Hmm.
I'd had that early in my life as I aged out or became an adult. But, I did it in another way, not to say I'm clear of all my
Hmm.
triggers, but I did it in another way. But you have
Hmm.
to invest in yourself, figure
Hmm.
out who you are. And like you say, you being alone, you have to like yourself enough to be alone, and
Hmm.
you're not having kids so that you're not alone. There,
Hmm.
there's lots going on.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say before we come to the end of this, I just wanted to ask you: is there a question that I haven't asked you that you would like to expand on? Is there something? And I know we're going to put your foundation and everything at the end that people can
Hmm.
check in with you. But
Um, I don't know. I think that, that for people that's interested in fostering, I would encourage people not to let like your own past history discourage you from fostering or from like wanting to do what it is that you desire to do. And then fostering is one of those things. Like I have a mental health background also, but I thought it would stop me from being able to foster, but it didn't. It just only like intensified like my need to acknowledge that this was the issue. You're getting therapy. You're okay. Like don't let like the things that you've been through or like the thoughts and opinions of other people like make you like not want to move forward and like getting licensed or like the things that you see like in the news and on social media about foster kids. And I have two severely autistic children that I've never, I mean, to my own ignorance, I had never known anything about autism before.
your children, your girls are autistic?
My two foster children are autistic. And so
Oh.
they're severely autistic. I had never even interacted with a kid with autism before, but it just challenged me to educate myself and when my kids came in June, they weren't talking, they weren't eating. I was feeding a 2-year-old with a syringe, severely traumatized and, just a bunch of things going on. And they're now talking, they're eating on their own. They wouldn't even drink from cups. We were feeding them with syringes. Like they would only take Pediasure. Now they're eating like whole meals by themselves, and they're like the 2-year-old wasn't walking. There was a lot that was going on there, but I had to like educate myself on how to interact with them, how to get them to feel safe with me, how to get them like comfortable and, just it was work. We worked through a lot and it was hurricane season. There was a lot going on here in Houston. It was a lot happening, but we got through it. And so I'm glad that I didn't let other people's opinions of their thoughts of my inability to care for them stop me from caring for them, because they're not thriving. 100% thriving. They go to daycare now. They're talking, they're using their words, and they still have a long way to go, but they're good. And so don't let people's opinions or just what you see like on social media about like just children in care, like the system and how corrupt it is, and like experience it for yourself. That's the only way you're going to get it, is if you experience it for yourself. Hmm.
So the call is to, especially in your area, any area, to reach out if you are interested, or just open your mind to being a foster parent and
Hmm.
find out. Step into it. I mean, there's children everywhere who
But you don't
who
even have to
need a
even
home.
start by fostering. You can start by doing respite, which is
Oh yeah,
babysitting. You can start off by just volunteering, at a child
that's
placement
true.
agency, at an emergency shelter where, abused and neglected children are. You can really see
Yes, yes.
the behaviors there. I just think that we all have a job to do. The Bible commands us to take care, Jesus commands us to take care of his children.
That's what I was going to ask you. The one It's a commandment, you said.
It is a commandment.
You,
And it is. It's
uh-huh.
biblically is written. Jesus tells
Yes.
us, and the foster care system is not a state problem. It is a church problem. And I stand on that. It is a church problem.
Say more.
So yeah, it's a church problem. So it's not even a government problem. It's a state problem. I mean, it's not even like a state problem or like a government problem. It is a church problem, you know. And so we have to do the work. Like we have to, you know, put ourselves into a position to be able to take these kids and help heal them, not re-traumatize them. You know, I like the two children that I have in my home now, their mom is welcome here anytime. She can come do her visits here. We just had a party for the baby last weekend. I send her videos and pictures of the kids throughout the week. I communicate with her because out of sight, out of mind. But I also want her to know that I'm here to support her also. Every
Yes.
kid from as far back as I can remember, like the ones that really stay with us, they come, they travel with us when we're traveling. They come visit when they're in town. They make it their business to come to town to see us. You know, they call, like we stay, like we've built family, you know, like we've truly built families. And they don't look like me, like, but they see me as like, you know, like a second mom for them, you know. But I also made them feel very inclusive. Like when their children were placed with me, I made them feel included in every decision. You know, my doors open to them, you know. Yeah, I mean
And you
it's
have a very supportive husband, it sounds like.
mhm, mhm,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, and you have this family that you're getting to know,
Mhm.
which is you're just you're spread. You're spread, but you're
Yes.
whole. You know, having a faith grounds you. Having your faith and
Mhm.
going to therapy is very grounding.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I want to say thank you so much, Chenita. You are. We celebrate you. We
Thank
thank
you.
you. Uh, Everybody out there, I'm sure, will get a lot of feedback about what you're doing, how you do it, what love looks like, what the family mosaic looks like, because it's all included. But
Mhm.
thank you for spending time here and for sharing your story and your resilience and your growth and your just Shanita-ism. So
So thanks for using your platform to allow people to tell their
yeah,
stories because, you know,
thank
most
you.
people can't connect to what they don't relate to, you know. So
Yes,
it's a good thing to have, like, you know, someone using their platform to bring awareness to,
yes,
you know, these communities because it's not
yeah.
really talked about a lot.
Yeah. And I appreciate everybody that's been on the show that
Mhm.
has, shared their story with
Mhm.
us because it's not always easy to
Mhm.
talk about. And I know some people have said there's your family secrets and all of these things. There's nothing
Mhm.
to be ashamed of. We are
Yeah.
all here for a purpose, for a reason. We
Mhm.
deserve to be here, all of that.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
but thank you so much and be well and stay blessed.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
Right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
So that young lady, Shanita, just I don't even know what to say because when I hear people's stories, I always feel so blessed. I'm so blessed that they share these stories with us. And as you see, Shanita is someone to be treasured and honored and celebrated. So that's it for today, folks. And I hope you come back and hear some more stories. And if you have a story you want to share, please drop us a line. If you have any feedback, please drop us a line. We need your stories. We need your voice. So thank you and be well.